And I can remember falling in love with the movie as a kid, and I remember seeing it. I saw it in a revival house in L.A. and people laughing their heads off. And so the notion that, because again, Jerry Zaks came back into my life, who said, he was momentarily, he was sort of going to maybe do it. And he was working with Mel, and he would tell me, he was the one who first mentioned that it was actually happening, and he was thinking about doing a musical of it, and that he would come in and sing songs to him. And I can remember Jerry turning to me and going, "We can do it. And I would go, okay. And you'll let me know how that turns out." And then, and then time passed. Jerry was no longer involved, and it was Mike Ockrent and Susan Stroman, and I ran into Mel in Paris. I won't go into the whole story, but we ran into each other, and he said, he felt I was the person to play this part, and so I was, I thought, well, that would be great. I'd be thrilled and honored. So, and then more time passed, and finally, they did a reading of it, and it just, people went crazy. Whenever we did it, people went crazy. They just loved it, and it's just one of those times when it was the right show at the right time, and where there was an anticipation about it. The people would talk to me about it and say, "Oh, how's it going? And what is going?" Everyone seemed very happy with the notion that it was me and Matthew, and it was just because the movie is so beloved, and you didn't want to screw it up, but certainly it was to do it with Mel there, and with the Mel Brooks score, it all made sense, and from the get-go in Chicago, it was like, the first preview, I said to Matthew, well, that's like the real die-hard producers, the cult movie fans, and they were all here, and there was a huge theater. We were in this Cadillac Palace, which is like 2,200 seats, enormous. So it was packed, and then I said it will never be like that again. And then the next night it was, and then the next night, and then it was an unbelievable phenomenon.
Having been at your third preview out in Chicago, it really was extraordinary how quickly the show came together. But you ended up spending a lot of time in that show. You did a long run initially on Broadway. You came back to it, and then you even ended up in it in London.
Yeah.
What was playing a role that long at different periods? What was it like to keep coming back to that show?
Well, the first year, do you really want to hear? The first year, obviously, it was the thrill of everyone in show business should have a success like that. It's just there's nothing like it. It's just where people they're laughing in the lobby, and they just can't. They're so happy to be there, and it's a glorious thing, and you should enjoy it because it comes along so rarely. One of the problems for me was physically. During the first run, I had all sorts of problems. I had I sprained my ankle. I had my back went out. Vocally, I started. I had a nodule, but which really wasn't the real problem. It was like my muscles had given out. It was like you had over-exercised, and after years of wear and tear, I just sort of had this breakdown, and I wasn't working the way it had in the past, and it was very obviously upsetting. And also, you're in the middle of the run of the show of your life, and if you're not there, people want to kill you. So that was disturbing, but still, I got through it. I got through the first year, and then it took about a year and a half, not only for the nodule to go away, but to working with people like Joan Lader, and now I've been working with a woman, Katie Agresta, who's been tremendously helpful in sort of rebuilding things and vocally, but that was a difficult period, as thrilling as the whole experience was, and I was so grateful to be a part of it. And then it was just fun when we went back. We went back for like 3 months, like a year or two later, and on New Year's Eve, and It was, and we just had a blast, and it was so much fun. And then the run in London was literally, that was an accident. I mean, again, another last minute. We had finished The Frogs at Lincoln Center, and I literally walked into my house in Long Island, and there was a message from Susan Stroman saying, "Could you give me a call?" And I knew. I had a feeling. And then she said, it's Richard Dreyfuss is having some problems and physical problems, and I don't think it's going to work out, and could you come? And literally if this was like a Thursday, the following Friday they were going to start previews. And I said, "Susan, I'm so exhausted, and from the Frogs, that wasn't easy." I said, I'm just physically exhausted, and I also want to be rested for the film. We were going to make the film. Anyway, I said, "Let me think about it," and then I called back the next day and said, I don't think I can do it. And then she cried, and I said, "Okay, I'll come." And so I got on a plane, and then the next thing I knew it was Tuesday. It was Tuesday, and I was on stage at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane in a hat and a cape with a lot of British people trying to do American accents, and they all sounded Irish, but they were adorable. It was a great company, and my friend Lee Evans was playing Leo, and so we had done a film together, and I just adore him. And he was another reason I wanted to go, was because, it was a big thing. He was doing a musical. He's a huge star in London. And so, anyway, it was. It turned out to be one of the best times ever. Mel was there. Mel and Ann were there, and it was. And they said to me before we started, they would say, they're British people. They may be very reserved and they won't react the same way they did in New York. And I said, "Okay, great." And then literally the first night they were tearing the seats out of the theater. They were on their feet. They said they won't give you a standing ovation, and they did, and they went nuts. And we were just, it was thrilling. And then I was there for about 2.5 months, and then of course my whole body gave out. I had to have knee surgery. My back went out. It was just, so I had to leave a couple of weeks early, which I felt badly about. But it was a great time, and it was a really wonderful production in London.
Well, you mentioned The Frogs, presented by Lincoln Center Theatre with Susan Stroman again directing. And you not only were the star of the show as Dionysus, you were also, in effect, one of the co-writers. You very loosely readapted the script.
Yes.
How did that come about for you? Not only getting cast as the actor, but also basically reworking the whole book. Years and years before, when I was a kid, when I just got into New York, remember back then when we talked about that? You go to the drama bookstore all the time and browse, and I saw this copy of The Frogs, and I thought, which was originally by Aristophanes.
Yes, he had something to do with it. Original writer Aristophanes. And then it was adapted by Bert Shevelove, who had co-written Forum, and then Sondheim had written these choral numbers, So I was very intrigued because I loved Forum, and I thought, oh, this is interesting, and it was not what I expected, and I had it, and I had that copy of that for years, and I would write little things in the margin about what I thought about how it should be done, or maybe there's a better joke, and I had this thing for years, and then there was I guess it was 70th birthday celebration for Steve at the Library of Congress, and we went and we did a concert version of The Frogs, and then we did songs that he wished he had written, songs he was glad he had written, and I kind of hosted that part of it, and I did Dionysus, and so when there was a recording of it, and when I remember listening to the recording and just thinking, well, there's something about this that resonates for today, and I wonder if we could do this, because they only did it for a short time at Yale. That's the famous production.
A handful of performances.
Yeah, in the pool at
Payne Whitney Gymnasium.
Yeah,
And it was mainly because Bert Sheveloff wanted to work with the swim team. So, I thought wouldn't it be interesting to see to take this piece and see if maybe he would be interested in maybe more fully musicalizing it and what we could do. And so I brought